So guys, welcome back to this last segment of our conference, and by far it has really gone very well. Thank you to all participants, all viewers, all organizers, and technical support for this wonderful opportunity and a wonderful, unique occasion globally. So we are beginning again on the last segment, and this segment is going to be moderated by my friend Dr. Prashant Khankhoje from Pune, India. He is a left-hander. Dr. Khankhoje is an engineer and a doctorate in renewable energy who is an internationally acclaimed expert in his field. Prashant wears many hats like a success mentor, growth catalyst, motivational speaker, life and business transformation coach, sustainability advisor, and a corporate trainer. He has several prestigious awards from various fields to his credit. As an active member of the Association of Left-Handers India, he is instrumental in creating awareness about left-handedness in the society. I request Prashant to please take over and please conduct the next sessions. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe because of time zone difference, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the time zone everyone is. So till this time we had a wonderful session, deliberations on many topics, and most of them who presented the idea or talked on various subjects. They were mostly left-handers. And this time I welcome you all for the third session, and we will be beginning with Tracy Merwe from South Africa, and she's a right-hander, and she's a founder of Left Hand Learning Center, founder member of leftin.org. And the topic what she's going to talk about with us is the day in the life of a left-hander, a mother's perspective. She is a nurse, midwife, educator by profession. In 2010, Tracy took over the company Left Hand Learning, inspired by her left-handed son. She supports and educates parents, teachers, and caregivers about the needs of left-handers. She focuses on empowering families and schools to make small, meaningful changes that support left-handed learners in both academic and home environment. So, friend, till this time we were getting the experiences from left-hander themselves, how they have tackled the situation, how they have tackled the education, what were their experiences in society, whether they are doing while education or doing a professional work, and dealing with other people who are mostly right-handed. But here we are going to take a view from a mother who has left-handed son. So watching a left-handed person growing, and how a mother is looking at her son while growing, and what are the challenges or what are the different views she had while growing up her son. So it will be very interesting to know a mother's perspective who has a left-handed son. So I'll hand it over to Tracy to begin our session and have a wonderful experience, all of us. So let us hear from her. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant, and also welcome to everyone on the floor and everyone on YouTube. Yes, so let me share my screen and then we can watch the, okay. All right, so as Dr. Prashant said, I'm a mom, a right-handed mom of a left-handed child. His name is Jean, and this journey started when he was about 6 or 7. The teacher was talking about the way that he's struggling with his fine motor skills and a whole lot of other complaints. So let me start my slides. You'll see my slides shift from right to left because that is the natural directionality for a left-hand dominant person. So these were some of the complaints that the teachers had for Jean. He was struggling with his fine motor skills. Slow is the word that came up very often. Slow writing, slow cutting, slow everything. So the handwriting was also a problem, pencil grip was a problem, and then cutting also. So his task completion was slow. It wasn't a great end result in each of these. So lots of issues. And as a mom, obviously, you take note of this, and they suggested that we take him to an occupational therapist, which I duly did. And the occupational therapist at the time said that she has noticed that he's left-hand dominant, and that we will then focus on that, and we will help him improve these skills, which is great. And we went through the process. And I decided, well, then best I educate myself, because as a right-hander, and my husband's right-handed, my daughter's right-handed, let me see what I can learn about being left-handed. And I found a lady that did left-handed workshops. And so I attended that. And it was quite an eye-opener for me, because I realized there's this entire left-handed world out there that me as a right-handed knows nothing about. And on this workshop, we learned a lot of things. I learned about everything left-handed, from the way their brains are wired differently, the way they do things differently. I thought you just swap everything over to the other side. Like Steve said, that's not how it works. So all the research, which was so fascinating. We also saw what stationary items and household items are available, and I was fascinated by those. And then also she discussed the challenges that lefties face at school and also at home. And also she gave some solutions, which are really great. So I was all fired up after the workshop, and I went home, and I was excited to have new discussions with John, because I kind of felt like, okay, I'm starting to understand a little bit of this left-handed world. So I went home with a whole bag of goodies, which was very exciting. I see there, it's just cut off a little bit. Let me just follow there. All right, so I'm going to take the slide from right to left, going anti-clockwise, because again, that is the natural instinctive directionality for a left-hand dominant person. So starting there on the right, you'll see there's scissors. So I went home with the left-handed scissors. There's those little pencils with the shavings on the sides. Those help with the grip on the pencil. Then we have some pencil grips that also helps prevent the little fingers from moving down the shaft of the pencil. There's a sharpener, left-handed sharpener. There we have the can opener. Then we have the potato peeler. Then the Swiss Army knife. That was just really cool, especially for a little boy. Everything on there is set for the left-hander. And then the pens that are also quite comfortable for them. So I went home with my bag of goodies, and I started discussions with him about, have you used these things before? Have you seen them before? And I also had a question for him about sharpening his pencils, because I thought that he was sharpening his pencils in class, because that's what kids do, right? And so I called him over and I said to him, so I've got this left-handed sharpener, and I want him to show me how it's used. And I asked him, so, who was sharpening his pencils up until now? And he said, no, the teacher sharpens his pencils. So I said, okay, that's fine. So I took the pencil and the sharpener, and I put it down on the table, and I said to him, I want you to sharpen the pencil like it feels comfortable for you. Because I wanted to tap into that instinctive drive. They talk about that often when they talk about left-handedness, that their instinctive drive is as strong as the right-handed's instinctive drive. So I had the sharpener and the pencil, and all he had seen up until that point is people who are right-hand dominant sharpening their pencils. And, we hold the pencil in the right hand, sharpen in the left hand, and we rotate anti-clockwise, and that's how we sharpen our pencils. And so he picked the items up, and I said to him, remember, it must be comfortable for you to use. So he swapped them around, because that's what he'd seen. So he swapped it around, and there wasn't further explanation from my side, because I wanted to see what he does. He stuck the pencil into the sharpener, and he started rotating the sharpener. And it was amazing to see that he could sense that something is actually happening, because you can feel the pencil grinding in the sharpener. And when he took the pencil out and it was sharp, he said to me, "Oh, look, Mommy, my pencil is sharp." And I said, "Of course your pencil is sharp. You've just sharpened it." He said, "Yes, but I tried it so many times before and it just never worked." And so I realized that even a simple skill like sharpening a pencil can create a huge amount of self-confidence in a child, as opposed to not being able to do that, which he hadn't done up until that time. So it was with huge revelation that he went around and sharpened everyone's pencils in the entire household. He was so excited. So it was just wonderful to see, given the right tools, tapping into his own instinctive drive and then completing a task successfully, and that it felt good. It didn't feel uncomfortable or odd or strange. It felt quite normal. I suppose like when we do it, it feels quite normal. Anyway, so that was really great. Then, so my mission became that I wanted to put my feet into the shoes of a lefty. I wanted to get a sense of what their day is like. I wanted to get a sense of what do they experience during a day that is challenging, and how do they then overcome that? And so that was my mission as well. And I also realized that there must be parents like me that are right-handed and they have left-handed children. And that's when I started doing workshops for teachers, for parents, occupational therapists. I found also quite involved with having left-handers in front of them and helping them with their challenges. And I suppose that's kind of where it took off for me in terms of education was very important, and understanding how the equipment works, that was also very important. So it's one thing to give someone a scissors or give someone a sharpener, that's for lefties, but you need to understand how it works and you understand why is it left-handed. That to me was also quite important. And looking at these two little shoes on the screen, I remember teaching how to fasten shoelaces. So it took Jean 6 months to get the hang of tying his own shoelaces. And only after I had gained some knowledge about the left-handed world, I realized that I was teaching him the right-handed way. So I was expecting him to take the information I'm giving, to process it in his brain and try and output it the way that I'm showing him, because I wanted him to do what I was showing him. And not realizing the challenge that he was having, because from a right-handed perspective, it must have been so difficult for him to try and get the hang of tying your shoelaces. And over time, I've been using a little tool like this, which is really great. I thought to myself, surely there's a way of teaching someone how to tie their shoelaces, which is not specific to handedness, that it's kind of general. And Lena was talking about having tools and equipment that is ambidextrous, meaning that it is easy for both left and right to use. And so when I thought of helping parents and children learn how to tie their shoelaces, I found a little tool like this. And I always tell parents, we use the mirror image. So sit on the opposite side, you and the child facing each other, because that's the mirror image. So when I explain something, when they look at me, that is the left-handed perspective. And we can do that when we do knitting, crocheting, any other kind of skill that we want to teach from a right to a left perspective. That's an easy way for that child to see what you're doing, and that would be the left-hand perspective. So it makes sense to them. So doing shoelaces can be quite a challenge. And here in South Africa, it's a school readiness tool. So it's quite an important skill to have before you go to school. We go to grade 1 here when they are age 7. And that's more or less when they do the school readiness testing. And to tie your shoelaces is quite an important skill. So this works really, really well for that. All right, so come with me into the shoes of a lefty, and let's talk about those things that Jean faced. And he was instrumental in my teachings because I would ask him, how does this feel for you? What feels more comfortable? And so he was my greatest teacher. So when we talk about getting dressed, in the mornings, there's not a lot of time getting ready for school. So everything you can do to shave off a few seconds is magic. Now here, I don't know if we're the only country that does that, but sometimes it feels that way. The buttons on shirts are female and male. So they either cross this way or they cross that way. So we have male and female button shirts. And so what I did is, and when you do buttons, you push and you pull at a specific angle, right, with specific hands. And so I would go and I would buy the girls' long sleeve white shirts because they look the same. And I would cut the pink label off, and the buttons would be so comfortable for him to use. And that would shave a few seconds off in getting ready in the morning. With zips, I'm sure there where you're sitting, if you can feel what way your zip goes, it's either a lefty zip, so it's easy for the left hand, or otherwise it's a righty zip where you have to pull the hand this way to undo the zip. And so here also we have male and female, comfortable to the left or the right. And so that would also, when I buy his pants, I would make sure that those are zips that are comfortable for the lefty to use for him. When we talk about belts, so as a right-hander, I take my belt in my right hand and I start threading it to the left all the way around my waist. So I allowed Jean to take the belt in his left hand and thread the belt all the way around towards the right, all the way around in his left dominant hand. So it made things a little bit easier for him. And shoelaces, we discussed. I had by then taught him how to do it, and he had successfully gotten the skill of tying his own shoelaces. So yes, these things can help you a few seconds in the morning getting ready for school. Wind-up toys. When we take a wind-up toy, as right-handers, we rotate clockwise and we wind it up, we let it go, and then it runs or squeaks or squeals or plays music or whatever it does. The lefty comes along and they take the same toy and they also wind up. However, they wind in the opposite direction of the way that it's supposed to be. So they actually strip the toy, they strip the mechanism, which is crazy. So in a left-handed household with kids, you'll actually not find any wind-up toys because they'll probably all be stripped. So it's a case of having the conversation with the child. And I used a little illustration of left loose, right tight. And this helped John whenever he was faced with something that rotated, that he would just whisper that to himself, and then he would take the tool or the toy or whatever, and he would then be able to do it the first time round, not try and figure out or get it wrong or any of that beforehand. He would get it right the first time. So yes, wind-up toys can be quite fun. So card games are also interesting. You can see there when we play card games, we fan the cards in our hand, right? So you can see there the left-handed player and the right-handed player. For right-handers, we fan the cards and we can see all the numbers. When the left-hander fans the card, they would hold it in their right hand and take the card out that they need to play with their left hand. But you can see on the picture there that they cannot see any numbers, because the numbers on cards, as we generally know, are placed on two corners, left top, right bottom. So when they fan in their instinctive manner, you can't see any of the numbers. So I actually found cards that have numbers on all four corners, so that when they fan their cards to play a card game, they can also see the numbers, just the same as the right-handers can. You can see at the bottom illustration there, those cards have got numbers on all four corners. So you do actually find them. They are available. Then around the house. Okay, so around the house, also some interesting things that I came across that begs the question, we do for the right-hander, but why don't we do the same for the left-hander? And again, I'm starting on the right side, going anti-clockwise. The setting of a table. So traditionally, when we eat with knives and forks, the knife goes in our dominant hand and the fork in the other hand. So when a lefty eats, they would have their knife in their left hand. So you can see these settings on the right-hand side is for the right-hand dominant person, and the left side is for the lefty. Now the spoon at the top, when we take the spoon to have our dessert, we would take it by the handle. So the left-hand setting, you can see the spoon is in the right place for me to just literally take it by the handle. And that's the way Jean would take it. So why must we give them a setting where they must swap their knife and fork around and they have to twist the spoon around before they can use it? Also, where we put the drink, what they're drinking, we would put ours kind of on the top side of the knife because we would take with our right hand and drink. The same, the lefty would take their drink from the left hand. So you would place the drink above the knife. So in our house, the table is set with 3 right-hand settings and 1 left-hand setting for Jean. Then we have the bread picture. So there's knives, and knives that are left and right-handed is a little bit contentious. I'm thinking of Steve and Ian and the discussions that we've had about knives. But this picture here illustrates a left-handed person with a knife serrated for the comfort of the right-hander cutting a bread. And the angle is completely skew. So one thing I realized was that when we apply pressure to a certain tool at a certain angle with our dominance, it obviously creates a certain effect. So when a lefty places that pressure at the specific angle with a specific tool, cutting bread will be skew. The serration on the knife is on the other side, and that causes the bread to be skew. You do get knives that are serrated on both sides, and I would suggest that would be ideal because then it doesn't make a difference. Then we come to the screwdriver. So when we rotate with the screwdriver, we rotate in a clockwise direction as right-handers. The lefty's natural instinct is to rotate anti-clockwise. So in our household, Dad built the Meccano set. Meccano's got a lot of screws and bolts, so he built it, and Jean took it apart because he could undo the screw easily and more comfortably than actually rotate it in. But again, it was the case of left loose, right tight, that he just had to check in with before doing things that needed a screwdriver and a screw to be rotated in the right way. Then there's a measuring tape. So measuring tapes that are set for right-handers. The numbers are upside down when the lefty wants to use it. So you get a left-handed tape measure, and they can also do some measuring work around the house with Dad. Then we have a bottle opener. The bottle opener, again, if you want to open a bottle of wine, then when we rotate to remove the cork, we rotate in a clockwise direction, and lefties rotate in an anti-clockwise direction. So you get corkscrews that are designed for lefties, and that makes it possible for them to comfortably, according to their natural instinctive drive, open the bottle of wine. And I've always said, why can't John open his own bottle of wine one day when he is having a date with a girlfriend? And so, yes, we get these corkscrews that are specifically designed for the lefty for their comfortable rotation. Then the one on the right there, the last one, is the screw top bottles. And this is actually just fascinating because we have bottles that rotate like this with screw tops all around the house, right? I take the tomato sauce bottle, which is probably part of most meals. And so you take the bottle as a right-hander and you unscrew the bottle without even thinking. No one specifically taught you what direction to go to, right? It was just an instinct thing. You just took it, you unscrewed it, and it opened. So the lefty, I think, watched their siblings or their parents. They take the bottle and they want to do the same thing. They rotate it and they think, but when they do it, it opens so easily. So they try and open it, and it actually just tightens it. It closes it tighter because their instinctive directionality is different to the right-hander. And these have been designed to be comfortable for the right-hander, just like many things in this world. So again, to teach the lefty that little one, left loose, right tight, so that when they take the bottle, they can first time screw the right direction and they can open the bottle first time without having to meet that challenge, and also having the conversation with them to understand there are right-handed people and left-handed people, and this is the way you do it. You just do it a little bit differently. It's not wrong. It's a huge confidence booster when they can get it right first time. All right, so these are the things at school that Jean struggled with, some of the challenges. The first one on the right there is the sharpener. We spoke about that just now. So the little blade is swapped around and the rotation is in a different direction for them so that they can sharpen their pencils quite comfortably. The next one there is the pen. So you can see it's got a bit of a funny shape. We call it a swan pen. And you can see how big is the gap between the finger and the written word. And the reason for that is so that the left-hander can see what they're writing, because that's a big problem usually, is they can't see what they're writing. And when they can't see what they're writing, they compensate. And then they hook their grip, so they have these funny grips because they need to see their work. So these pens are beautifully designed to give that little bit of extra space. And we always say that have the fingers a little bit higher up on the pencil or the pen, so that we have that gap that creates. That one there with the pencils, you can see what they've done there. They've got these little shavings on the sides of the pencil. It goes all the way around. And those are comfortable for the left hand. And even if you have to sharpen the pencil, they just move up to the next little grips. So there's always a grip that's built into the pencil. The reason why must we have a grip on the pencil is usually pencils are quite smooth. So as you can see with this one, it's quite smooth. So when they push into the paper, because they push instead of pulling, they push into the paper, their fingers slip down. And to prevent that, we have these little shavings that we find on the pencil. So those are pretty cool to use. And then obviously the scissors, we've mentioned the scissors often today to make sure that they have a left-handed scissors. And also the direction is important. When I cut as a right-hander, I cut in an anti-clockwise direction, and the left-hander cuts in a clockwise direction. So it's important to mention that to the child. First of all, give them the right scissors, and second of all, help them with that direction that they need to cut in. And then we have pencil grips. Pencil grips are great. Also, again, for those fingers that slip down the shaft of the pencil. And also it helps create a nice comfortable grip on the pencil. So those are really cool to use. And then that one on the right bottom, that's where do we put the child at the desk? And Steve spoke about that. Put the lefties on the side of the desk. Even better, put the lefties together, because then they can kind of have the beauty of having someone similar next to them that writes the same way, and their elbows in the same way, and they have the same worksheets. So it's quite fun when you have the lefties together. All right, so some more of the school things. On the right-hand side there is the letter formation. So here in South Africa, we let the lefties do exactly the same letter formation as the righties. The only thing that's different is the crossbar. We can allow them to do the crossbar from right to left. So that's on the T, the capital H, capital F, because that doesn't change what they're trying to say. It doesn't change the letter, it doesn't change the word, but it's comfortable for them. Their directionality goes from right to left. So letter formation is challenging for lefties because they do circles clockwise, and these letters, as you can see, the little arrows go anti-clockwise. So understanding that is important for me. They must understand that it's challenging, work with the parents as well, help them understand why the child's going to struggle with these letter formations, because having the knowledge doesn't make the child feel that they're doing something wrong. And I think that's a lot of times the case is when the child can't do something or they struggle with something, immediately they think that they're doing something wrong. Because in a classroom, they're looking around to their friends and they see that they're not struggling and they're cruising along and they're doing things easier. And to have those conversations just reassures them that, yes, they do things a little bit differently, but this is the reason why, so that they can understand why. In the middle is something called a symmetry drawings. Symmetry drawings is where you get half of the drawing and you need to complete the other half. This sketch here, you can see that it's a left-hander and his hand is quite comfortable and he's ready to complete the other half of the house. This is the ideal world. Unfortunately, when symmetry drawings get given to children, the half of the drawing that is completed is on the left-hand side of the page. So the left-hander comes along and puts their hand on that side, and they now have to complete the other half. So they have to continuously lift their hand up, and that takes time, you can imagine, even though it's shavings of seconds, but it all adds up. So the task takes longer. And so it's quite easy, I think, to make your own symmetry drawings that you flip on the other side, because I find that's fair, right? We need to have equal fairness in terms of tasks for lefties and righties. So this one that we see here is the way it should be. We should give the lefties in the class a symmetry drawing to complete that is comfortable for them. Then, on the left, there's the inclined board. So inclined surfaces are really great, especially for lefties. I think for both lefties and righties, but especially for lefties, because it allows them to see their work, first of all. When you incline your work, you can see what you're writing immediately. The wrist is nice and straight. And also their posture is great because they straighten their backs, their lungs are open, good oxygenation, all of those things are positive. So an inclined surface like that, I find is a huge benefit, and more so especially for the lefty. The sketch of the two pens at the bottom is just to illustrate the difference in the way that we write. The lefties push against the paper, and that might cause some issues on their hand and their wrist, and understand that and have discussions about that. And the right-hander just takes the pen and just cruises along the page. So there's not much tension in the hand or the wrist. They don't really have the same kind of writing issues as lefties have. But again, understanding why they might struggle with things is because they're pushing into that paper. So it's the resistance all the time. And that causes a few challenges. All right, one of the other things is greetings. When we shake hands, traditionally, we put out our right hand, the other person puts out their right hand, and we have a comfortable shake. But for the lefty, instinctively, they put their left hand out. And most often, the right-hander doesn't really quite know what to do with that hand. So there's this uncomfortable shake happening. And I think because the lefties are the minority, eventually they say to themselves, oh, let me just put out my right hand, because otherwise everyone is so uncomfortable. And so they've got to just remind themselves every time before they shake someone's hand. So going against that instinct drive. And again, having the conversation so that they understand this is why it's an uncomfortable thing. Because most people are right-handed, and when you shake the hand with the left hand, that makes for an uncomfortable handshake. When we do hugging, and most of you have probably never even thought about this as right-handers, when you hug someone, you kind of hug into a specific shoulder of the person that you are hugging. Instinctively, it's not something you think about. The other person heads into the other shoulder, your shoulder on this side, right? So when we hug, it's a comfortable thing. I'm on that person's right-hand shoulder, and she's here in my right-hand shoulder, and we give each other a comfortable hug. When you hug a lefty, they are aiming for the same shoulder as you. So I call it the hug dance. So when you hug them, they're kind of heading for the same shoulder. So you kind of like, oh, wait, okay, where are we going now? And it's this uncomfortable thing that happens when we're doing a hug. So it was so sad the one day with one of my workshops, the one mom said, I stopped hugging. And I said to her, that's just so sad. She said, because every time it was so uncomfortable, the other person was so uncomfortable, because I would want to hug and then they hug and we kind of don't know which shoulder to go in for. So hugging can be an issue. I've always, when John comes in for a hug, I give him a lefty hug, because I can, as an adult, I can understand it and I can just go in for the lefty hug. So, and when kids are young, they just want to hug, isn't it? They don't want to think about what shoulder must I go in for now again. So it just makes it easier. And then when we talk about kissing, so when we kiss someone, we lean our head a certain direction. Also, again, it's an instinctive thing. It's not something we think about. Right-hander, we kind of lean into the left side, our head would lean in. If you have a right-hander, left-hander, then we're going to lean into the same side, and we're probably going to bump our noses. So there's also, again, that uncomfortable moment where okay, you go that way, I go this way, and then we can kiss. I remember there was at one of the workshops, there was a man, he's a cardiothoracic surgeon, so a very intelligent man, and his wife was also there. He was left-handed and she's right-handed. And I remember when I was discussing this, he turned to her and he said to her, "Did you ever notice this?" And she said, "Yes, I did notice it. I just thought you were a bit odd." So it's the oddness, and he said he was so disappointed because no one actually told him these things. He just always felt at odds with himself and with his environment because there were these situations that kept happening that he didn't necessarily understand, but he had to navigate them. So yes, interesting, these greetings. This is my son, Jean. He's 22 now. And so my journey started when he was around 6 or 7. So it's been a wonderful journey. I've learned so much, and it's amazing to understand better the world of a lefty. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I've had with Left Hand Learning here in South Africa, just to create the awareness, to do the workshops, to educate people. And then with Left In, of course, as well, being a global group, it's been amazing to see what other people have done around the world. So yes, my journey continues, and yeah, it's just wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. It was wonderful to hear you. In fact, we all experienced the cards and shoelace, what you told. We all have experienced that. And we are sure that most of us didn't have the mom who has got so knowledgeable to tackle left-hander child. So we manage ourselves during our childhood. But cards, I still remember I played upside down, and then they open it and then they turn it around to make it straight, because the numbers are not seen. And I think I'm looking for the cards having numbers on all 4 corners. So maybe we can have all left-handers having those cards in our home to play, so that everybody can mark it. And especially I like the word you said, right-handers instinct and left-handers instinct. I think that matters much. And a right-hander having that instinct to handle the left-hander, I think that's a great perspective to have. And then you devise some mechanism to mirror image and do handle your son and make him grow the way he want in a natural style. Because most of us who are more than 50 years old, 55 years old, in our school there was a tradition that the teachers were asking us, don't write with the left hand, write with right hand, because that was little orthodox time in 70s. So what we used to do, most of Vipin will echo with me, that in the school I was used to write with right hand, and when I go home I used to write with the left hand. So that way, slowly journey towards ambidextrous. But then after you go to high school, then teacher is not bothered what your hand you are using at. It was only in the primary school, because they are very cautious about the personality development, and they say you are using a wrong hand. So that was a childhood experience. But then slowly now it is going away. Now left-handers are being seen with as a special kid, because of all our vision and all our say whatever we are doing for awareness session of the Left-Handers Association. Bipin and our organization going to schools and make them aware that left-handedness is not wrong, and then you can have the natural hand grow up, and then only asking him to sit on the left corner will solve all the problem, because otherwise the hands are touching each other. So in earlier ages it was not there, but now we are growing. And thanks for sharing your views. It was very fascinating to understand from the right-hander's perspective. Yeah, Vipin, you raise hand.
Yes, I have a question, Tracy.
Yeah.
And this is not just for you, it is for all of us. The question is to us. It has been posed to me by parents and teachers, especially parents, saying your idea that left-handers need to be given their own space, their own gadgets, appliances, equipments, implements, and they need to be comfortable using them rather than using the right-hand world right since the childhood. That's fine. It's a great idea. But when your child grows, you means their own child, they said, when our child grows bigger, goes to college, goes to high school and college, and into the big bad world, They are not going to get all those gadgets. In simple thing like a pair of scissors, they are all going to be using the right-handed ones, and they will be so at an inconvenience, and they will curse us that you did not teach us using all the things that right-handers use. So this is a big dilemma. What is the solution for it? How would you tackle it? I know that eventually the world, like Lena said, will become designed ambidextrously and everything will be available. But intermediate stages where nothing is available outside, how would your child, and basically because your child is now 22, he is already into the big bad world. What is his experience?
So my son has his bag of left-handed goodies and he stays on his own, and the left-handed goodies went with him. So yes, if push comes to shove, he can use the right-handed tools, but he's got his left-handed stuff with him. He's got his peeler, he's got his knife, he's got his scissors, he's got his sharpener, he's got his tools, and he's taken it with him. So yes, I understand they are hard to come by, they are very expensive. I understand all of that, but that's the way I've done it. Is he's got his little bag of goodies, and I've had that question before where someone would say to me, okay, but now he's all these left-handed stuff, and how moving forward, and you can't have your whole life with these little left-hand things. And my answer is, why not? Why not? Because it makes it a little bit more comfortable for him. He's had it since a child. So I just continue with that. And as I say, he's got his little bag of lefty stuff, which is,
Okay.
That's how we've done it.
I would echo that. My youngest one, who's now 30 something, she has her left-handed scissors and kitchen utensils. Sure, she has a little freer access to them than many people. She just helps herself off the shelf. But we stock and sell many items that are freely available to adults all over the country. That they're not disadvantaged; they just need to want to use it. There are many that are buying dressmaking scissors, for instance, that are my vintage and older, that just find that they are so much better. They'd never used left-handed scissors before. They bought them and they think that they're the best thing on earth. So those that want them as they get older, they will get them.
Okay, I think Merwe has raised the hand. Merwe, you have raised the hand. Do you have anything to say?
Yes,
please.
Thank you so much. Let me firstly appreciate the presentation, the mom's presentation. It has been our presentation, and now we are moving into the arena of parents who have had impactful experiences with their children. And the one thing that I would want to contribute to this platform is how we at local and also international level, we really need to be looking at harnessing the knowledge, the expertise that are coming from parents, because most of the time we are on our own march because we're left-handed or ambidextrous or whatever other nature, and we are not actually exploring the avenue of the wealth of what parents would bring. And that is one area of research that I believe we need to be exploring equally and also strengthening going into the future. But one thing that I also wanted to just appreciate from what Tracy shared with us is how, and also Mr. Steve, how their children are advantaged to have their bag of leftist goodies. And yet, in the broader scheme of things, we are having many who would not even afford a scissor or any other gadget, an individual gadget. And it would be amazing how, as a lefties and even parents of left-handed children, we actually need to be having a community that fundraises for such children, so that we would have an assignment where we say there should not be a single left-handed child who does not have the basics at elementary level. And I'm sure it would be something that is impactful, that in this second international conference, we could really begin to explore, and with others who are having interest, because we always talk about, we're inward looking, but we're talking about ourselves and things relating to us. Now we should be able to say that collaboration, that partnership, but for sourcing for those who cannot afford. I think that would be one of the greatest benefits. Thank you so much, Tracy, and all who has spoken even before on the same matter of gadgets and equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful discussion, and maybe we can take it forward.